Welcome to ACC 3103 Cost Accounting. This is a full summer 15-week course. It will be done 100% online due to the coronavirus. My name is Dr. Melarani, and I'll be your instructor for this 15-week session. First and foremost, I want to wish each of you the best. I hope you are well. I hope your family members and friends are well. And I hope you are in a safe place. If there's anything that interrupts your safety and impacts the course, please notify me and I will make every accommodation that I can to ensure that you can remain safe. So with that said, let's take a look at how things are set up on the Blackboard, which will be our main learning tool throughout the semester. So what you'll find when you log onto the course are some tabs over here. There's a home page, there's announcements, syllabus, faculty profile, course material, quizzes, discussions, and your grades. We'll primarily be working through the course materials and the quizzes. And in the course materials, we'll link to the discussions. So for example, well, before I jump into that, the first thing we should probably take a look at is the syllabus. So the syllabus is located in this folder. If you click on that hyperlink, this will open up. So here's the syllabus for ACC 3103. So here's my contact information. Feel free to email me at any time. I'll try to respond within a couple of hours. If it's on the weekend, it might be a little bit longer. You should have taken ACC 2200, which I believe is managerial accounting. Here's the required textbook. You can read through the course outcomes, and I want to just point out a few things. Here's the game plan in terms of how the grading will be assigned. So there'll be a weekly quiz. I'll drop you 2 lowest quiz scores, and I may, in some cases, and particularly the first couple of weeks, allow you to take quizzes on multiple times, only so you can become familiar and comfortable with the quiz process. Every week, you'll be expected to contribute to a Blackboard discussion question, and there'll be a final exam. And if you keep scrolling down, what you'll find is the schedule. So this is kind of the game plan that we'll use. We'll be covering about a chapter a week. So this is the schedule that we'll be utilizing throughout the semester. All right, so that's the syllabus. And what I'm going to do now is to open up the week 1 materials and take a walk through them. So if you click on the folder called Course Materials, what you'll see is the first 2 weeks of the course are available to you right now. And when I click on the hyperlink called Week 1 Course Overview, it talks about what our learning opportunities are for the week and what the week 1 requirements are. So I'd like you to review chapter 1, review the posted materials, and then participate in the discussion board question of the week. The discussion board question this week is how does managerial accounting compare to financial accounting? What is similar? What is different? And how can a management accountant help organizations make better decisions? So you'll find answers to those questions in the course materials, and you could also Google them or do some research on your own to find them as well. So if you click on the supporting materials folder, what you'll find in here is PowerPoint slides for chapter 1. So I'm going to open up chapter 1 slides right now. So chapter 1 is called The Manager and Management Accountant. So here's the learning objectives, and essentially what is covered in chapter 1 is something you may have had in managerial accounting as well. as a comparison between financial and managerial accounting, how management accountants play a key role in helping organizations make better decisions that is both strategic and tactical. And there's a little bit of discussion about strategic cost management, which I'll talk about later in the semester. And there's some other extraneous information there about decision-making models and so forth. But then then it comes back to some things that I think are important. So where the management accountant fits into the organization structure, and the ethical, the code of ethics and ethical responsibility for management accountants, which I believe is extremely important. So let's take a look at the chapter. So one broad way of looking at accounting is to break it up between financial and managerial, particularly as it relates to the support that it provides to organizations. So many of you have taken financial accounting courses already. And so what you should know about financial accounting is that it's based on a set of rules. In the United States, the rules are called Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, or GAAP. Some of you may be international students, so you may, the rules in any particular country might be slightly different. There might be the International Financial Reporting System rules, or China has its own Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, Canada does, but they're all very similar in nature. And basically, when you think about the world of financial accounting, what we're talking about is the world where you have a set of rules and you apply them to the transactions that go on in an entity, and then you report financial statements. Managerial and cost accounting plays a much different role. The role the management accountant, the cost accountant plays is to help the organization make better decisions. And so at the foundation of that is that management accountants need to understand what things cost. And if you think about why it's important that management accountants know what things cost, it's because the organization makes many key decisions based upon cost. They make decisions about pricing, about where they're making money and losing money, about whether to make or buy something, and so forth. And so the management accountant at the foundation is the expert about what things cost. And so that's something that we'll come back to when we get into activity-based costing a little bit later in the semester. And the other thing that the management accountant does is it helps the organization set up processes like the planning and control process, the budgeting, the regular reporting that gets done in organizations to help the organization stay on track and move towards its objectives. It also helps the organization make key decisions about whether to make or buy, whether to add or drop a segment, and so forth. So there's a lot of key things that management accountants do. And comparison, and the other thing I should note about management accounting is that it's very future oriented. So we're trying to make decisions that will impact the future. Financial accounting is really about what's already happened and capturing history and reporting it accurately. So key stakeholders like creditors and shareholders can make important decisions about whether to invest or not invest, whether to loan money, not loan money, etc. So here's a nice table that summarizes it. The purposes, the primary uses, the focus and emphasis, the rules, time span, and behavioral implications. So I'm not going to read through slides. You can read through them yourself. I'm just going to add some perspective on why I think it's important that we cover particular things. So one of the key things that we have to recognize for management accounting is that it's designed to help the organization, managers, key decision makers make better decisions. So it's very internally focused. Where financial accounting is really externally focused. It's trying to provide information to investors and creditors so they can make rational, better decisions. The other key thing about management accounting is it's about the future, where financial accounting is really about getting the history right. And the other key thing that we sometimes don't discuss enough is the behavioral implications. So if I put a budget in place, or if I have certain procedures in place, that drives certain behaviors. So if I set up goals and metrics, that's going to drive people towards those goals and metrics. If I set up a very tight budgeting process, or if I put a plan in place that people don't believe they can achieve, that's going to create certain types of behavior, either motivation or demotivation. So we have to be very cognizant that we not only do we deal with numbers, but we also impact people's motivation or demotivation depending upon on how we set things up. Later in the semester, I'm going to spend a week, maybe a little bit more, on something called strategic cost management. And when we get into that, we're going to talk about what strategy is. And when we think about strategy, we think about organizations either having to be cost leaders or differentiators. And once we make that decision as to what realm we operate in, it's going to change our approach to budgeting and planning and other decisions in the organization. So that's something, this whole area of strategic cost management is something that we will come back to and look at in more detail. So I'm going to kind of gloss over it right now, but we'll keep in mind that later in the semester, we're going to come back and talk about things like the value chain. And the value chain deals with this idea that knowing cost doesn't just involve knowing the cost of our particular product or service. It also involves knowing how things outside of our organization impact the perception of our product or service from our customer's perspective. And so what that drives is the recognition that when we look at our value chain or supply chain, we really have to look at it across the entire spectrum, from where we source our materials to the impact on how easy we are to do business to our customers, in addition to understanding what goes on in our own four walls. So here's a little bit of information on that. But again, we'll come back to value chain management. Customer relation management deals with this idea that there are CRM tools out there, and CRM tools basically try to integrate data so that we can collect information that's helpful to our customers. Let's skip over some of these. The steps in the decision-making process, you can read through this. So the first part of the semester, we're going to talk about cost terms, something called cost volume profit analysis. We'll look at differential costing and analysis. And then the second part of the semester is going to be about planning and control systems, about putting a budget in place, about the different ways to approach budgeting, tops down, bottoms up, whether we want a tight budget or a loose budget, and responsibility accounting and that nature. And that's going to be in the whole planning and control discussion, which is going to be later in the semester. So when we think about the chief financial officer of an organization, he or she typically reports to the CEO or the president of the company. It's a senior management position. It's a C-level position. And in large organizations, you may see a multitude of reporting areas. The controller often handles planning and budgeting, financial reporting. So the controller might have responsibility for both managerial and financial reporting. There are specialty areas: tax, treasury, risk management, investor relations, strategic planning, and internal audit. These are really outside the scope of our course, but they're all specialized areas that in large organizations often report to the chief financial officer. In small organizations, what ends up happening is the CFO and his smaller staff or her smaller staff will actually do all of these functions, even without having the title. So taxation is a very specialized area that often requires either a master's degree in taxation or a law degree in taxation. Treasury involves dealing with investments and cash management, often a very specialized area. Risk management is more of an insurance thing. So you want to assess where your risks are, make sure that you mitigate your risks, often through insurance in the United States. Investor relations deals with you are the interface between your shareholders and your creditors, giving them information to help them make rational decisions. And then strategic planning just deals with this whole issue about looking beyond the next year, looking at the longer term, 3, 5, or 10 years out. And internal audit is a function that serves as a check and balance. And sometimes, as this dotted line indicates, they may actually have a dual reporting responsibility to the board of directors to ensure their autonomy and independence from the CFO. So the CFO can play a major role in a number of areas. And when I think about a CFO, certainly the role of management accountant is an integral and crucial role within that realm, because the management accountant really needs to know the business and needs to help the organization make better decisions about prices, about whether they're making money or losing money, about putting a budget in place, about getting reporting done, about whether to make something or buy something. So very important part, as is financial accounting, because financial accounting deals with making sure that we're complying with generally accepted accounting principles, publishing the 10Q and the 10K in a timely manner so our investors and creditors understand what our financial results are, and so forth. So every organization, every profession, I should say, has a code of ethics, including the management accountant. So there's an organization in the United States called the Institute of Management Accountants. IMA is often referred to. And they promulgate a code of ethics for the management accountant. And it's broken up into 4 categories. Competence, which basically means that we're going to continue our professional education, make sure that we know the right things to do. Confidentiality, which means that we have to respect that we are given insider access to information, and we have to respect that confidentiality. And then integrity means that people know that I'm somebody who is beyond reproach, that I'm going to call the numbers the way I see them and not be influenced by either my peers or by senior management. And that ties into the issue of credibility. So every profession has a code of ethics. And really what the code of ethics does is it guides us above and beyond our legal requirements. So certainly we have many legal requirements. We have to comply with GAAP. We have to comply with tax laws. We have to comply with other regulations and rules. But what the code of ethics helps us to do is when we're faced with a conflict, when we're faced with difficulty that may not be a legal requirement, but requires us to be the best we can to support the organization, those are the ethical roles that are offered. In the early 2000s, there was a big problem with some major companies in the United States misreporting financial information. The poster child for this was a company called Enron, which was a Fortune 50 company that went bankrupt overnight, primarily due to financial fraud. And they were not alone in terms of companies that were bending the rules. And so in response to that, there was a law passed in the United States called Sarbanes-Oxley, or SOX. And basically the goal of that is to enhance the internal controls and corporate governance, and ensure that organizations have a strong internal controls in place before they publish their financial results, that there's some checks and balances that kind of broke down in the early 2000s and led to a lack of confidence among investors and creditors in the financial results that were being published. Okay, so at the end of the chapter, there's a bunch of terms that are covered in the chapter that you can take a look at. Okay, so when you're done reviewing the Chapter 1 materials, I'd like you to participate in the discussion board. It's 15 points. I'd like you to participate by Sunday, May 10th at noontime. This week, you'll just have your own contribution. Some weeks I'll ask you to respond to others, but not this week. It's a couple of straightforward questions that I think you'll be able to answer pretty readily after reviewing the materials. And then in the quizzes folder, You click on quizzes. Every week there'll be a quiz, and to take the quiz, you just click on this and click on begin. And this week I have 20 objective questions for you to answer. You can take it more than once, but it does close at Sunday, May 10th at I think noontime. So you need to make sure that you take it and complete it. And what I will count is your highest score. So if you take it multiple times, whatever your highest score is the one that I will count. Okay, so what else is there? So I think that at this point, what I'd like to say is that you should just jump in, go through the course materials, email me if you have any questions or any problems. Try to respond within a couple of hours, and look forward to working with you throughout the semester. So thank you for enrolling in this course, and I look forward to seeing your contributions throughout the semester.